One of the names given by the British police to some unsolved cases is paranormal cases. The reason for this is that all witnesses agree and are consistent with the occurrence of paranormal events, which leads to the investigation being at a dead end. The sealed case file is stamped with the name Unsolved Paranormal Case. One of these sealed cases is the Jane family incident that occurred in the 1950s. The incident is related to the story of a family with 4 children in England. The Jane family buys a large farm in northern England and settles there. They also get along well with their neighbors, but one night their children Mary and David become scared and wake up their parents. The children tell their parents that a woman and 2 children knocked on the door and called out to them from the window. Father Robert Jane goes out in fear and searches around the garden and the house, but cannot find any trace of the woman and children. Thinking that Mary and David were just playing a childish game, they continue to sleep. When they wake up, Robert is surprised to see that the horses' water and feed have been put out while he was in the barn. However, he attributes this to the children's game. A few days later, when David and Mary come back from school, they tell their parents that they saw the woman and children in the nearby forest on the night in question and that they waved to them. Robert and his wife Jessica get angry and punish their children for playing this game, but the children insist that they are telling the truth. However, that night, the whole family wakes up to the sound of the door being broken and the kitchen being completely overturned. Robert takes his gun and goes out to the garden where he comes across some footprints, just like the ones described by the children. He sees the bare footprints of 3 people inside the house and in the garden. Upon this, Robert calls the police and explains what happened. The police investigate the situation by questioning the people living in the neighboring farms. However, there are very few people living in this area that match the described footprints, and the police are unable to find any conclusive evidence. They suggest that the area being a wooded area, some wild animals may have caused the damage. Robert and Jane try to prevent animals from entering the farm by building larger fences, but every night, the doors are still being knocked on, and bare footprints are still seen in the garden. Jessica, the children's mother, then asks them to draw a picture of the woman and 2 children they saw. Robert takes the drawing to the police station, suggesting that the people in the drawing may be the ones who came to their house. However, after conducting a thorough investigation, the police inform Robert that the people in the drawing are the previous owners of the farm who were found dead in their home 50 years ago. Robert and Jane return to the farm with this surprising information. What happens next remains a mystery that the British police still cannot solve. David and Mary do not attend school for a few days following these events. As the teacher knew about the incident the family experienced, they assumed they went to visit their relatives in southern England to relax for a few days. However, a few days passed and the children were still missing. The neighboring families, Robert and Jessica, started to get worried as they hadn't seen the family for a long time. According to the case file, the neighbors said that the Jane family didn't have any employees working for them, so someone must have been feeding the animals. Upon this, the neighbors and the police broke into the house, but they were shocked by what they saw. Jane and her family had been stabbed to death in their home. The case file noted that the children and the couple were killed in their sleep in their beds. The most surprising detail in the case file was that the family had been killed 3 weeks prior. However, during this time, the animals in the barn were regularly fed and given water. Another unsolved paranormal case recorded involves a wealthy family in London and their missing elderly mother. According to the family's statement, the elderly woman had recently begun to refuse to sleep in her room at night, and the family assumed it was due to her age. However, Elisa told them that someone was watching her every night, and that's why she didn't want to sleep there. But the children didn't pay much attention to this. One morning, when they woke up, Elisa was not in her room. They searched the entire house but couldn't find her. Suspecting that their grandmother had been kidnapped, the family reported it to the police. The police examined the camera recordings in the area, but no one entered or left the house. As a result, suspicions were focused on the family, and the investigation carried out in the house yielded no results. In the search of Elisa's room, however, a piece of paper was found under her pillow. The paper read as follows: "You go to bed around 9 o'clock, which is an unusual time for you, but you don't seem to care. You toss and turn until you feel like someone is watching you. You search the room, but there is nothing there. You lie on your back and try to sleep, but you can't. You still feel like you're being watched. You pull the covers over your head and try to relax, but the feeling persists. You're afraid to move the covers to look for the eyes that are watching you. You're terrified, but your heart is racing with excitement. You pull the covers down and look around the room. There's still nothing there, and the feeling disappears. You scold yourself for being scared and turn towards the wall to fall asleep. But let me ask you this: do you know how many hiding places there are in your room? And why are you in my room?" These are the last records left by Elisa. No further news can be obtained, and the case is classified as an unsolved paranormal incident in England. I am relaying the memories of a police officer who worked at the Missing Persons Search Bureau and published a book about his experiences in the 70s. I have a good record of finding missing persons in this area, as those who get lost in the forest either lose their way or get stuck between medium-sized rocks and cannot find their way back. However, I encountered a few incidents where this did not occur, and these events caused me a lot of trouble. The first incident involved a child who went on a hike in the forest with their family and disappeared at the same time as their sister. Their parents had momentarily lost sight of their children, and they disappeared during that time. When their family couldn't find them, they contacted us for help. We quickly found the girl, and when we asked about her brother, she told us that he had been taken by the bear man. He had given him some blackberries to quiet him down and said he was going to play with him for a while. The last time she saw her brother, he was on the bear man's shoulders as they walked away playing. Of course, our first thought was kidnapping, but we found no trace of any human in the area. The little girl was insistent that the bear man was not a normal human. He was very tall, had a face like a bear with hair covering most of it. We searched the area for weeks. It was one of my longest missions, but we never found any trace of the child. The other incident. It belonged to a young woman we encountered during a walk with her mother and grandfather. According to her mother, The young woman climbed a tree to get a better view of the forest and never came down. Her family waited at the base of the tree for hours, calling out to her and asking for her to come down, but she never appeared. When we searched the area again, we found no trace of her, and we had no idea where she could have gone since neither her mother nor her grandfather saw her come down from the tree. When we returned to the police station, it was as if the incident had never happened, and no one even mentioned the missing woman. When I asked my colleagues about it, they remained silent. I later learned from my superiors that such incidents were common in the forest, and even the police officers were afraid to talk about them because they didn't know the cause. What really gave me chills was when we went on a search and rescue operation with the forest rangers for someone who should have returned from a climbing trip but never did, despite it being very late. We were searching in an area where bears had been sighted, according to reports, and to reach the place where we suspected he was lost, we had to do a few serious climbs. We found him with a broken leg in a small crevice, not a pleasant sight, and he had contracted a serious infection from being there for almost 2 days. According to one of our employees, the injured person was psychologically finished, talking about how well his climb was going, and when he encountered a man at the top, the man had no climbing equipment and was wearing a coat and ski pants. He approached the man, and when the man turned to him, he saw that one side of his face was missing. His face was in place, but there was just a void. He was so scared that he tried to descend the mountain quickly and as a result, fell. He had heard the faceless man's muffled screams all night long. When I heard those muffled screams, I was really scared, and I was thankful that I wasn't the one who heard them. Subscribe for more videos like this.